This is Pamela from Animal Justice Emergency. Thanks for joining us today. And today we're going to be talking about organising your own group and how, by organising our own groups, we can help to stop the war on other animals. Why start your own group? There are lots of different reasons. For me, it was when I went vegan, I was in another country, actually in Malaysia. I spent about the first year trying to learn more about being vegan, what it meant, research, and I mainly got that from being on Facebook and social media. I wanted to do something a bit more, I was watching all these things about the Cubes and the Save, the James Aspies and the Joey Carbstrongs and the Earthling Eds, and thinking, wow, they're doing so much in the UK. But there was nothing really happening where I was. So as an activist, I've been an activist in all sorts of different fields for all my life, really. The first Save the Whales literally demo was when I was 19 outside the International Whaling Commission in London. And since then, it's been a whole pile of sort of, environmental, social justice, tenants association. So it's kind of in my DNA is to get active. When I went vegan, I decided to prioritise vegan over any other kind of activism, even over the climate change activism, which I spent the previous 10 years doing. How to do more vegan activism when there was no vegan activism happening where I was. Good question, isn't it? Start something myself. And that's what you can all do, is start something yourself. It doesn't matter how small, it doesn't matter how inexperienced you are. There's also resources online, but this is a jumping off point to say, just do it. It'll be good. What did I do first of all? Well, as part of my vegan research, I'd been doing talks and improving my speaking skills at something called the Toastmasters. Because I thought, well, that's one thing I can learn to do. I can learn to talk about vegan issues. I was getting more confident as a speaker and bombarding these somewhat baffled office workers in Penang Toastmasters with my vegan and you must go vegan and experimenting. So that was all really great. So I thought, well, the way I can get people into a group is do some talks. At that time also there were farmers markets were just starting to become a thing. So I approached them and said, would you like a talk? And they said yes, so I did the talk. And that's how I met Tan Sio Cheng, who was a young woman who spoke fantastic English. She was actually an English teacher. She was also a vegan, amazingly. And she said, yes, I'd love to get involved. We organised a meeting and she brought some friends along, some other local people. We developed the name. We came up with the name. And bearing in mind the different cultural sensibilities in Malaysia, we came up with the concept of Life, Love, Vegan, because we wanted it to be all sort of like friendly and fluffy, and it's not like that for me anymore. That was Malaysia, and that was, understanding the culture. So we had the name. What was the next thing that we were going to do? And this is the thing that you can think of. What's the name of your group? What's the next thing after the name? We wanted to do outreach, so back to the farmers market, talking to people, talking to the farmers market organisers. Can we have a stall? This is what we're doing. We paid them some money. And that's the other thing that we need to think about when we're doing our organising. When you're doing your organising, who's going to fund it? Where's the money going to come from? Because at the beginning stage, it is going to be you. Don't be put off by it, but just be aware that there will be a small amount of outlay. So we organised outreach, the typical sort of like outreach that I'd seen on Facebook. With a laptop, we'd have somebody talking to the passers-by. Where I was, most of the people spoke English, which was great. So we could all speak and communicate with the local people that came along. We did outreach with food. We made our own signs. We had a meeting. We wrote, why do cows give milk? Eat cows, not dog. All that sort of stuff, handwritten. I paid for a banner, a couple of big banners, just so people would notice us. And we did different venues. Just phone up somewhere or visit somewhere, and make local contacts as well. So at the farmers market, you'd meet other people who are organising different farmers markets. Also in your local area, who's doing stuff, or you could find out who's doing some stuff. Maybe there's some sort of like cultural centre or community centre that would benefit or would like some free talks, maybe with some free food. There was some tourist centre, which was the Botanical Gardens, and they had a venue in the city And I approached them and they'd like, yeah, we'll have, we'd like a workshop. So there are all these different centres that will be open for a talk until COVID, obviously. So that's something that you need to sort of think about. But obviously that was before COVID. In the COVID context, there'll be other ways of getting around that. We'll contact these different places, offer to do a talk or a workshop. And I was very fortunate because Tatsio Chang and her mum is Indian, and they would cook amazing food, because I'm not cooking food. I'm giving the talk. I'm just not. It's not my thing. It was all cool. It was really great. They would do amazing food. We had some monk who he gave us a space in his temple, which was actually his house, to hold a workshop. So you will find people by getting out and about. You meet more people, and suddenly you're being, your contacts are increasing, and the kind of invitations or contacts that you can make who will help with the outreach are all coming together a bit more. These opportunities will be coming together. We did farmers markets, we did cultural centres, arts centres, this monk's house, this monk's temple. If you don't want to be giving talks, that's absolutely fine. You can print up some flyers, like these flyers behind me, for your group, or even do handwritten things. I mean, you probably want to print things and distribute them locally. That's something to think about. How are you going to get more people or engage with people? Something for the group to discuss. So the group is going to be discussing this at meetings. Now, one thing that I did was we held a lot of meetings. I think we held, in retrospect, too many meetings. So be aware of how many meetings you're holding, and the kind of like, if you're doing lots of meetings and fewer actions or activism stuff, think maybe we're holding too many meetings, or maybe just a couple of you want to meet and discuss things, and other people don't. And that's fine, It can be as fluid and as flexible as you want. This thing of contacts. Now, Tatsio Chang's mum actually worked for a local MP, and I was talking about the poster campaign that I'd seen, like the ones on the sides of buses. And I was like really into that. I thought this would be a great thing to do, and so did she. So through Tatsio Chang's mum, we kind of met one of the local equivalent of the MPs. It's all very sort of like respect, and sitting in the waiting room for a long time, and then being very sort of like, kind of like humble. And that was all fine. Had a chat with him about our vision of, veganism and Penang and tralala. I think it was kind of like he wasn't really interested, but he was just being polite because there was probably a bit of a novelty value for a Western person there. And that's fine. But other community centres, like there was somewhere called the Gandhi Centre, which was, again, sort of like an Indian community centre. We did a talk there, and it was a very mixed crowd of basically Westerners and local people, which was great. And we had the typical sort of objections from some guy, Western guy, saying, oh, well, they've got, animals have got, think, but not in the same way that we do. All the objections that we got doing outreach were exactly the same as the objections we get in the UK. Farmyard eggs was a big, big thing. I hardly eat any meat. The same sort of cultural barriers, whether you're in Asia or whether you're in Europe, in the UK, will come up, because you're all inculcated with the notion of the dominant culture, which is human supremacy and speciesism. So it's all going to be the same. That you can choose to do whatever kind of activism you want, food or no food, talks or no talks, flyers or no flyers, or anything else. Just get started, and you'll be really glad that you did. I became aware, though, what happened? I became aware that being a sort of a Westerner, I started to feel a bit uncomfortable talking to Asian people about kind of what they could perhaps do. Because it just seemed a bit like, white saviour-y, and I wasn't really into that, particularly because I was sort of like simultaneously reading stuff about the civil rights movement and the Indian War of Independence, and really kind of like getting my knowledge up about campaigning and linked oppressions. Also, I just felt that I would have more freedom when I was in the UK to actually be an activist the way I wanted to. Simultaneously, the group was having a few group dynamics issues, which inevitably they will have, I think they will. And if they don't, jolly good luck. That's great. But, soldier on and get a lot of experience and speak to people and learn. That's the thing that happens. You really learn a lot. It's a precious gift, and you speak to so many good people. And who knows? I don't know what the metrics are. It's just like a cube, really, isn't it? I was wondering about we could do maybe a save or something. So I visited a slaughterhouse, but I just felt no way. That was my experience. organising a vegan outreach group in Penang, Malaysia. It was really, really great. It was an incredibly powerful experience. And I think for anyone not sure about whether to organise, do I know enough? You don't have to know really much. You just need to get yourself and maybe a couple of mates or find some people and off you go. It's really quite simple. The thing is to keep on going though. The main thing is to just keep on going with the ideas. At some points it may feel kind of quite boring and a bit sort of like meh, oh gosh, another weekend, another farmer's market or whatever. Not in this COVID-y time, but whatever. But just keep on going. You'll be glad that you did. This is part 1 of how to organise. Part 2 is what happened in the UK and how I started to organise another group. Don't forget to like and subscribe and to click the notifications button. Part 2 is coming up very soon, and then also be a Ronnie Lee special with much more details on how to organise your own community group, because what I'm talking about here is more like outreach activism. There is a difference. So lots and lots of organising, lots and lots of activism content coming up. So thank you for your time and your kind attention today. This is Pamela from Animal Justice Emergency. Together we can organise to stop the war on other animals.